1 second, I'm having some issues. Okay. So today I will be talking about the relationship between climate change and rural heritage, focusing on traditional beehives and granaries as rural heritage of Elmalı in Antalya. The presentation is based on the outcomes and the analysis of Antalya Cultural Heritage Society's current project KIRKAMBAR, which is about documentation, digitization, and promotion of traditional beehives and granaries in Elmalı. So to start with, let me give you a brief information about the place. Elmalı is on a 2,000-meter height district on Alpine zone of Antalya in southwest Turkey. Elmalı has been a popular settlement since Paleolithic era due to its geographical location as being in the Lake District of ancient geography with its polyas and sinkholes. And it used to be a famous place for its white cedar and juniper forest as well. You can see some photos from different villages of Elmalı in here. And Elmalı used to be the center of agriculture and trade market as well back in the days. So as I mentioned, our focus is traditional beehives and granaries in Elmalı to discuss the consequences of climate change on rural heritage. So I will be briefly introducing the main characteristics of the traditional beehives and granaries now. Different from regular beehives, traditional beehives in Elmalı stand up as unique monuments, as you can also see in the slide. The beehives are made of juniper tree and they are set on top of a wooden mat and they're covered with juniper bark to have them as a protection layer. And this platform is placed on 3.5-meter towers so that they will be protected from the wild animals as well. We have an interesting fact in here. Archaeologists work in the area draw attention to the resemblance between traditional beehives and ancient Lycian pillar tombs in here. And beehives stand as an origin point for the construction style and the shape of these pillar tombs. You can see a technical drawing here of a traditional beehive. So continuing with the traditional granaries, they are made of cedar tree and constructed by using an interlocking system. Cedar trees are particularly chosen due to their high durability and efficiency for preserving crops. As you can also see in here, they have 2 stories. The upper part is to store crops and the lower part is to store different equipments. They can vary in shape and sizes depending on the wealth of the family and the amount of the crops the families are harvesting, and also depending on how it would be convenient for different families. So we have, again, different types of traditional granaries, and on the left-hand side, there is a different version. It's combined with the house in the one on the left. Again, similar to the traditional beehives, we again see a resemblance between traditional granaries and this time Lycian rock tombs. Again, the construction of the tomb is inspired by the construction style of the traditional granaries in here. Again, we see another technical drawing. And besides traditional beehives and granaries being a tangible heritage, there is also the intangible aspect. Both traditional beehives and granaries are made by masters, so no mass production is involved, and their unique construction techniques are passed from masters to their apprentices. So for these to maintain their existence as a part of Elmalı's rural heritage, they have to be used so that they can be produced more and or repaired, which will also keep the intangible heritage alive and inheritable. However, the rural heritage of Elmalı, together with both its tangible and intangible aspects, are at risk due to climate change. Water resources in Elmalı play a key role in villagers' lives for maintaining their practices, such as agriculture and beekeeping. The decision of drying up Avlan and Karaköy lakes to gain more land for agriculture, and it acts as the main trigger of climate change realized in Elmalı. These dried out lakes brought up severe consequences such as drought due to the decreasing amount of rain and snowfall per year, and this has affected the soil fertility and the efficiency in agriculture together with the diversity in natural fauna, has changed. The amount of crops harvested has decreased, together with the number of different plants and flowers that were beneficial for bees to make honey. It is inevitable to realize the impacts of climate change on rural heritage of Elmalı, which in this case, the traditional beehives and granaries, since they are highly dependent on nature. Due to the change in natural flora, depending on the degrees of rain and snowfall, bees are in need of traveling to find plants to make honey out of them. So today it's not possible to have bees on certain areas, which means that the traditional beehives are losing their function as a stable beehives. To be able to continue beekeeping, the way of practicing has changed. So the villagers are not using bees anymore, but the portable ones. And a similar situation is observed in traditional granaries as well. Majority of the villagers has stopped using their traditional granaries since the soil has lost its fertility and they're not capable of harvesting high amounts of crops. Villagers have shifted to greenhouse cultivation as well, which leads into excessive water consumption in a district especially which already has lost some of its main water resources. Together with this shift, the villagers also end up in abandoning their agricultural practice and becoming detached from their culture and heritage. Since there is no need for granaries, the knowledge behind the construction and the practice of inheriting these methods and the practice of teaching the apprentices is also being forgotten and lost. There is also another aspect in here. Even though there would have been enough crops to store in the granaries, since the climate change also has an impact on cedar forests, it's now really hard to find resources to build more of these granaries or repair these granaries because the forests are affected highly badly because of the climate change. As a result, since the main factor that has led villagers to abandon their culture and heritage is the climate change in Elmalı, if we want to preserve the rural heritage in here for longer terms, of course, then actions should be taken to raise awareness about climate change and to mitigate the effects of climate change. Thank you. I would actually like to point out something from the project I presented. During the project process, during the fieldwork, we had a lot of interviews with the villagers in Elmalı, and actually reading the transcriptions and listening to the interviews, we actually found out that this problem about traditional beehives and granaries not being used anymore is due to climate change. So it was actually coming from the villagers. But the important point is that they were not told that the problem is the climate change, but they were actually saying it by themselves. And these are people over 70 years old. And there were also some about 80 years old as well, but they were not told by someone that the problem is the climate change. But when we were hearing the interviews, they were just mentioning, oh, the nature is changing. Now it's not raining anymore. It's due to the dried out lakes. So I think it's important that we hear it coming from the local people, and especially also as me before living in Istanbul and now in Aarhus, like being in a big city, it makes it harder to relate ourselves because we are kind of detached from the nature. So I think the important point is to make this climate change, to raise awareness about the climate change. I think it's important to make it somehow relatable to people, because if you cannot experience the impacts on your daily lives, then it makes no sense, and then it will be just people, the same people trying to save the world, but that's not the case, and that cannot solve anything, I think. A small contribution. Yeah. We have a saying in Turkish, it's everyone should put their hands under the stone so we can lift the stone, but it's about acknowledging the reasons and finding a motivation to put our hands under the stone, I guess.